A maintenance engineer stumbles into a space portal, and a fated link with a warrior of their mission saved the universe. Lyren sat in the dimly lit control room of Oblivion Station, staring at the endless expanse of empty space. The station was quiet as always, with only the hum of machinery and the occasional beep from a malfunctioning system to break the silence. His job was simple routine and lacked any sense of excitement. Fixing broken systems, maintaining the aging infrastructure, and ensuring everything stayed operational day in and day out. No surprises, no adventure, no meaning beyond the daily grind. He sighed, glancing at the clock on the wall. It was almost time for his break, but even that seemed pointless. Outside, the vast emptiness of the universe stretched infinitely, and inside the station felt like a relic, a forgotten piece of machinery abandoned by time. He turned his attention back to the console in front of him, his hands moving mechanically as he entered the usual maintenance codes. Another day, another set of systems to keep from failing. Lyren, a voice crackled through the intercom. It was Eryk, the eccentric scientist who frequently wandered the station in search of ancient technology to study. "I need you in the storage bay. Something odd has come up. You might want to take a look." Lyren raised an eyebrow. Eryk's idea of odd usually involved some old artifact or malfunctioning equipment he'd dug up from one of the abandoned ships drifting out in the void. He had a habit of getting excited about things that most people would consider junk. "Sure," Lyren replied, his voice flat. "I'll be there in a minute." He grabbed his toolkit, and with a resigned grunt, he made his way down the narrow corridors of the station, the familiar creaks of the metal underfoot echoing in the stillness. The walls, once sleek and modern, now showed signs of wear, scratches, rust spots, and peeling paint. Oblivion Station, a relic of a bygone era, was a testament to the long-forgotten conflict that had torn the galaxy apart. When he reached the storage bay, he saw Eryk waiting by a rusted cargo door. The scientist was peering at something with an intense look on his face, almost like a child discovering a hidden treasure. "What did you find?" Lyren asked, trying to keep his voice casual, despite the curiosity gnawing at him. Eryk looked up, his eyes wide with excitement. "You won't believe this. I found something that shouldn't be here. A ship. It's old, really old. But there's something inside. Something strange." Lyren stepped closer, his skepticism growing. "What's so special about another derelict ship? I've seen dozens of those out here." No, this is different," Eryk insisted. "It's not just a derelict. It's a ship that shouldn't exist. It's from a civilization that predates anything we know." Lyren raised an eyebrow. "What, like a lost colony ship from the pre-war era? Those things are all over the place." "No," Eryk shook his head. "This ship is ancient, almost like a relic from a time before even the Great War. And there's something else. When I tried to access its systems, I found a strange device. I think it's connected to a dimensional rift. I need you to help me figure out how it works." Lyren hesitated for a moment. A strange device. Dimensional rift. The words felt alien in the monotony of his life. But Eryk's tone was serious, and there was something in his eyes, something Lyren couldn't ignore. Maybe it was time for a change, a break from the routine. "All right," Lyren said with a sigh. "Let's take a look." As they entered the storage bay, Lyren's eyes fell on the old ship. It was covered in dust and debris, with a massive hull that seemed to defy time. The strange device Eryk had mentioned was embedded in a console near the ship's core. It pulsed faintly, as if alive, drawing Lyren's gaze like a magnet. He reached out to touch it, but as his fingers brushed against the cool surface, the device hummed and flickered to life, casting an eerie glow across the room. "That's not supposed to happen," Eryk muttered under his breath, but his excitement was palpable. "I've never seen anything like this before." Lyren stepped back, his heart racing. "What did you do? Did you activate it?" "I don't think so," Eryk said, his voice tinged with confusion. "It must be responding to something." "But what?" Before Lyren could respond, the device pulsed again, and in an instant a rip in space appeared before them, an open portal swirling with strange energy. The air in the room seemed to thicken, vibrating with a low hum. Lyren's stomach dropped as he stared at the rift. "What is this?" Lyren whispered, his mind racing. "What did we just open?" Eryk's face turned pale as he backed away from the rift. "I don't know, But I have a feeling we've just opened something that shouldn't be opened. The two men stared at the rift, the air around them charged with a sense of impending doom. The device continued to hum its pulse, matching the rhythm of the rift's energy. Lyren's heart pounded in his chest as he realized that the life he had known, his dull, predictable life on Oblivion Station, had just been torn apart by something far beyond his understanding. The air in the room grew thick with energy as the rift pulsed its edges, twisting and warping, as if space itself were bending to its will. Lyren's heart raced as he took a step back, unsure of what to do. The strange device hummed louder now, and the glowing lines on its surface shimmered like veins of light. "What's happening?" Lyren whispered, his voice barely audible over the sound of the device. Eryk was frozen, staring at the rift, his eyes wide with a mix of fear and awe. This shouldn't be possible. We've opened something ancient." Lyren stepped closer to the rift, his curiosity getting the better of him. He reached out tentatively, his fingers brushing against the energy field surrounding the rift. The moment his skin made contact, he felt a strange pull, as if the rift was drawing him in. His body trembled as a wave of energy surged through him. Eryk shouted, his voice strained with panic. "Don't touch it! It's not safe." But it was too late. The pull grew stronger, and in an instant, Lyren was sucked into the rift. The world around him twisted and distorted as he was pulled through an impossible space. It felt as though he were falling, though there was no ground beneath him. His vision blurred, and for a moment he felt like he was floating through a tunnel of light and shadows. Suddenly, the sensation stopped. Lyren stumbled, disoriented, as he landed on solid ground. He looked around, his eyes wide with shock. He was no longer on Oblivion Station. The landscape around him was unlike anything he had ever seen. Towering ancient structures stretched into the sky, their surfaces covered in strange symbols and carvings. The air was thick with the scent of dust and decay, yet there was an eerie, otherworldly beauty to the place. Where am I?" Lyren muttered to himself, stepping cautiously forward. A voice echoed from behind him. "You are far from home, traveler." Lyren spun around, his heart pounding. Standing in the shadows of a nearby ruin was a figure tall, cloaked, and shrouded in mystery. The person's face was hidden, but there was something in the posture, the aura that exuded both power and ancient wisdom. "Who are you?" Lyren asked, his voice shaky but demanding. The figure stepped forward, its voice calm and deep. "I am Aralyn, guardian of the ancient ways, and you, Lyren, have been chosen." Lyren blinked, trying to make sense of what was happening. Chosen for what? Aralyn's eyes glinted beneath the hood, her gaze sharp. To close the rift, and to stop the chaos that will follow if it remains open. Lyren felt a cold shiver run down his spine. The words echoed in his mind. He had no idea how he could possibly be involved in something so grand, but there was a deep sense of purpose in Aralyn's voice, and Lyren felt an inexplicable pull towards her. Lyren's heart was still racing from the surreal journey through the rift. As his eyes adjusted to the strange new world around him, he took in his surroundings with a mixture of awe and confusion. The air felt thick with an ancient energy, a force that seemed to hum softly, though there was no source for the sound. The city he found himself in, Targos, was unlike anything he had ever seen before. The streets were wide-lined with towering structures that reached for the heavens, their shapes not of any recognizable architecture, but twisted and elegant in ways that defied conventional design. It was as though the city had been designed by a civilization that had transcended the physical realm, creating buildings that seemed to breathe with the pulse of the universe itself. Everything in Targos was covered in a thick layer of cosmic dust, as if the city had been abandoned for centuries, perhaps millennia. The dust glittered faintly in the light that bathed the city, casting a spectral glow over everything. Ancient symbols and carvings were etched into the surfaces of the buildings, their meanings lost to time, but their intricate designs suggested a culture of profound knowledge far beyond the understanding of the current age. The stone underfoot was smooth and black, reflecting the dim light like polished obsidian. Every step Lyren took echoed through the empty streets, a constant reminder that this place had been abandoned long ago. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the occasional hum of energy coursing through the air, emanating from some unseen source. As Lyren wandered deeper into the city, he noticed that the buildings, while monumental in scale, appeared to be slowly disintegrating. Some were partially collapsed, their walls crumbling, but the structures that remained stood with an eerie sense of defiance against the ravages of time. There was a haunting beauty in the decay, a quiet dignity that suggested that the city had once been a place of great importance. In the distance, towering above the rest of the city, was a massive structure that stood like a sentinel, its form cloaked in shadow. It was the largest building Lyren had seen so far, an impossibly tall spire that seemed to pierce the sky itself. It glowed with a faint, otherworldly light as though it were alive, and Lyren instinctively knew that this was where the answers to his questions lay. Aralyn, Lyren whispered, still in awe of the vastness and the mystery that surrounded him. "Where are we? What is this place?" Aralyn, who had been walking silently beside him, stopped and turned to face him. Her eyes, though still hidden beneath her hood, seemed to burn with intensity as she gazed at the city. "This is Targos," she said softly. "Once it was the heart of an ancient civilization, a place of knowledge and power. But now it is nothing more than a relic, a forgotten city lost to time." Lyren absorbed her words, but something about Targos seemed alive despite its obvious decay. The way the light shifted, the subtle hum that vibrated in the air, it was as though the city itself was waiting for something, for someone. For him, why was it abandoned? Lyren asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Aralyn's expression softened for a moment, a shadow passing over her face. The people of Targos were betrayed. A great war tore their civilization apart. And when the war ended, the city was sealed off, left to decay in the void of space. Only a few of us remained to guard it, and now it waits for the chosen ones to return. Chosen ones, Lyren repeated, the weight of her words settling heavily in his chest. "And you're one of them." Aralyn nodded, her gaze distant. "I am the last of my line, the guardians of this city entrusted with its secrets. I was born here, and I was chosen to protect it. But I was never meant to be alone. The others, they're gone now. And you, Lyren, you were brought here for a reason." Lyren felt the weight of her words settle over him like a cloak. The city, the rift, the device, all of it was connected somehow. He had always thought his life was ordinary, that he was just a maintenance worker, a cog in the machine. But now, standing in the ruins of Targos, he realized that he was a part of something far greater than he had ever imagined. "This city," he said slowly, his voice filled with awe, "it's not just a place. It's a symbol, isn't it? A symbol of what was and what could be again." Aralyn turned toward the towering spire, her eyes narrowing. "Yes," she said softly, "and we are the ones who must awaken its power. But first we must find the others. Only together can we close the rift." Lyren felt a surge of determination rise within him. He didn't know what lay ahead, but he knew one thing for sure: his journey was just beginning, and whatever secrets Targos held, he was ready to uncover them. Lyren followed Aralyn as she led him deeper into the heart of Targos, her steps steady and purposeful. The silence of the city pressed in on him, the only sound the soft crunch of the dust beneath their feet. His mind was racing, trying to make sense of everything that had happened. Targos, the rift, the mysterious device, and now this woman Aralyn, who seemed to be a part of it all. "How long has it been?" Lyren asked, breaking the silence. He wasn't sure if he was asking about Targos or about Aralyn herself, who had been here for so long. Aralyn did not immediately respond. She glanced up at the towering spires of the city, her eyes scanning the ruins as if searching for something that only she could see. "A long time," she said quietly. "Targos was once a thriving hub of knowledge and power, but that was centuries ago. Now it is nothing but dust and echoes." Lyren looked at her, his brow furrowing. "I don't understand. You've been here alone." Aralyn turned to face him, her expression unreadable. "I wasn't always alone," she replied coldly. "But yes, now I am." There was a momentary flicker of something softer in her eyes, but it was quickly hidden. The tension between them was palpable, but Lyren could sense that there was more to her story. He hesitated, then spoke again. "Why are you here? What's your role in all this?" Aralyn stopped walking and turned to him, fully, her eyes narrowing. "I am the guardian of this place, the last of my line. My duty is to protect Targos and its secrets. But that duty is coming to an end." She paused, her voice softening slightly. There's more at stake now than just keeping the city safe. The rift, it must be closed or everything will be lost. The rift Lyren repeated the words carrying a weight he hadn't fully understood until now. That's what we need to close. Aralyn nodded, her expression hardening again. Yes, the rift is a doorway to destruction. It was opened when the ancient civilization of Targos fell, and it's been growing ever since. If it is not closed, it will swallow everything. Lyren felt a cold shiver run down his spine. The weight of her words settled over him like a heavy mantle. And you think I can help you close it? Aralyn's gaze softened slightly, but she remained distant. I don't know if you can, she said, her voice quiet, but I don't have a choice. The city is dying. The rift is tearing it apart. And you were brought here for a reason. If we don't act, everything will be destroyed. Lyren took a deep breath, the gravity of the situation pressing down on him. What do we need to do? Aralyn looked at him for a long moment before nodding. First, we must find the heart of Targos. The key to closing the rift is hidden there, and it will not be easy. Lyren nodded, determination settling in his chest. Whatever doubts he had before, they were gone now. He didn't know what lay ahead, but he knew one thing for sure: he was in this fight now. Lyren sat cross-legged on the floor of an ancient chamber, deep within Targos, his mind racing as Aralyn spoke. Around them, the walls were etched with symbols and carvings, remnants of a civilization far older than anything Lyren had ever encountered. The air was thick with the weight of history, as if the very stones themselves held memories of the past. The rift, as you know, is not just a tear in space. Aralyn said, her voice low but firm. It is the result of the ancient people's attempts to harness forces they could not control. The power that created it was beyond their understanding, and now it is threatening to tear the universe apart. Lyren was silent for a moment, processing her words. But why me? He asked, his voice filled with uncertainty. I'm just a maintenance worker. I don't have any special powers. Aralyn's gaze softened, and she sat down beside him, her eyes meeting his with an intensity that caught him off guard. You are not just anyone, Lyren, she said. You are the heir to a line of ancient guardians. Your bloodline carries the power to seal the rift. Lyren's eyes widened in disbelief. An heir? But I didn't know any of this. I don't remember anything about my ancestors. Aralyn nodded, her expression serious. That is because your memory was hidden from you. The ancient guardians, those who had the power to close the rift, knew that it would one day return. They sealed the knowledge within your bloodline to protect it, but now the time has come for you to awaken that power. Lyren shook his head, still trying to process everything. But how do I unlock this power? How can I close the rift? Aralyn reached into a pouch at her side and pulled out a small, intricately carved stone. She placed it in Lyren's hand, and the moment his fingers closed around it, he felt a jolt of energy surge through him. This is a key, Aralyn said. It is a part of the power that flows through your bloodline. Hold it close. It will help you awaken what lies dormant within you. Lyren stared at the stone, feeling the weight of its significance. And this is the key to closing the rift. Yes, Aralyn replied, but it's not just about power. The key lies within your understanding, your connection to the ancient bloodline. You must be ready to accept your heritage, and with it, the responsibility that comes with it. Lyren felt a wave of doubt wash over him. I don't know if I can do this. I've never been anything special. How can I, of all people, be the one to stop this? Aralyn placed a hand on his shoulder, her touch surprisingly gentle. You are more than you know, Lyren. This is your destiny. Trust in yourself, and the power within you will awaken. The rift had grown larger, its edges frayed and pulsating with a malevolent energy. The once faint hum had become a deafening roar, vibrating the very air around them. Lyren and Aralyn stood on the edge of the ruins, staring at the growing tear in space. We don't have much time, Aralyn said, her voice tense with urgency. She stepped forward, her eyes never leaving the rift. The rift is absorbing more and more energy from the universe. If we don't act soon, it will be too late. Lyren looked at her, his brow furrowed in concern. How do we stop it? The key. The stone. It's not enough. Aralyn turned to him, her face grim. It's not just the key that we need. The rift feeds on the energy of the universe, And the more it takes, the stronger it becomes. We have to sever its connection to the energy it's drawing from. How do we do that? Lyren asked, his voice full of doubt. It seems impossible. Aralyn took a deep breath and looked at the spire in the distance. The city's heart, the spire, it holds the power to sever the rift's connection. But it's not a simple task. We have to get there before the rift consumes everything. Lyren nodded, his determination hardening. Then let's go. We can't waste any more time. Together they began their journey toward the heart of Targos. The path was treacherous, filled with crumbled structures and unstable ground, but they pressed on knowing that every moment counted. The rift continued to grow, its energy pulsing in waves that seemed to shake the very fabric of space. The air around them was thick with tension, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. As they approached the spire, the ground beneath their feet began to tremble, and the sky above them darkened, the stars blinking out one by one. The rift was feeding on the very fabric of reality. "We need to hurry," Aralyn urged, her voice strained. "The longer we wait, the harder it will be to close the rift. It's feeding faster than we can catch up." Lyren pushed forward, his body aching with exhaustion, but his resolve was stronger than ever. They were close, so close to ending the nightmare that had threatened the universe itself. As they neared the spire, the air thickened with energy, and the ground beneath them began to crack. Lyren's heart pounded in his chest, and he could feel the power of the rift growing stronger with each passing second. "We're almost there," Aralyn said through gritted teeth. "Stay focused, Lyren. We have to make it to the heart of the spire. That's the only way to stop the rift." With a final push, they reached the base of the spire. As they stepped inside, the energy of the rift surged around them, and Lyren could feel the weight of the universe pressing down on him. It was now or never. Lyren stood alone in the shadow of the towering spire, his mind spinning with the revelations of the past few days. Everything he had known about himself, his life, and his purpose seemed to have been shattered. He was no longer just a maintenance worker on a forgotten space station. He was something much more. The rift, the stone, Aralyn, everything had led him to this moment. He now understood that the universe had more in store for him than he had ever imagined. The rift wasn't just a random anomaly. It was part of something much older, something that had been waiting for someone like him to come along. As he stood there deep in thought, the stone that Aralyn had given him pulsed with energy in his hand. He could feel it. Something ancient, something powerful was awakening inside him. The truth was finally becoming clear. "You're starting to understand, aren't you?" Aralyn's voice broke through his thoughts, and he turned to see her standing a few paces away. Her expression was unreadable, but there was something in her eyes, a knowing look that spoke volumes. Lyren nodded slowly, still processing the gravity of the situation. "I don't know how, but I feel it. I feel like I've been part of this legacy my whole life." Aralyn stepped closer, her face softening. "You are," she said gently. "You were always meant to be. The rift, the stone, it's all part of your destiny. You were chosen, Lyren, chosen to close the rift, to stop the destruction that is coming." Lyren's heart pounded in his chest as the weight of her words settled over him. He had been chosen. But to do what? To fight, to lead? "I don't know if I'm ready for this," Lyren admitted, his voice strained with uncertainty. "How can someone like me stop something as powerful as the rift?" Aralyn placed a hand on his shoulder, her touch firm but reassuring. "You are stronger than you realize, Lyren. The power within you is not just a gift, it's a responsibility. The rift seeks the key, the heir to the ancient bloodline, and you are that heir." Lyren stood tall, his eyes meeting hers. For the first time, he felt like he understood his place in the universe. The journey ahead would not be easy, but it was his to undertake. He was the key. He was the heir. And the fate of the universe rested on his shoulders. Aralyn sat across from Lyren, her gaze distant as she stared at the ruins of Targos. The wind carried the faint scent of dust and decay, and for a moment she seemed to be lost in her thoughts. Lyren could sense that there was something she was holding back, something she had never shared with anyone before. Finally, after a long silence, Aralyn spoke, her voice softer than usual. "I was born in Targos, in the heart of the city. My people were guardians, warriors, scholars, protectors. We were the last line of defense against the forces that sought to destroy our civilization. She paused as if the memories were too painful to continue. Lyren remained silent, sensing that she needed to speak in her own time. The war, it came without warning. We were not prepared. A coalition of other civilizations attacked us, hoping to wipe us out and take our knowledge for themselves. My people fought with everything we had, but it wasn't enough. They killed everyone. Everyone except me. Aralyn's voice trembled, but she quickly regained her composure. She looked at Lyren, her eyes hardening. I was the last one standing, the last guardian of Targos. Alone I had to watch as everything I loved was destroyed. And I vowed to protect this city even if it meant carrying the weight of my people's fall on my shoulders. Lyren could see the pain in her eyes, the weight of the years she had spent in solitude. He had always known Aralyn as strong and unwavering, but now he saw the vulnerability that lay beneath her hardened exterior. It wasn't just the city that fell, was it? Lyren asked quietly. It was your entire people, your family, your friends, everyone you knew. Aralyn's eyes hardened, but there was a flicker of sorrow that she quickly masked. Yes, everything. And it's because of that loss that I can't afford to fail now. I cannot let the rift consume everything, not again. Not after all we've lost. Lyren sat in silence, absorbing her words. He had always thought that Aralyn was just a warrior, a protector, but now he understood the depth of her loss and the burden that weighed on her heart. I never wanted this. Aralyn continued, her voice barely above a whisper. I never wanted to be alone. But the duty of a guardian is to stand alone to protect, even if it means sacrificing everything. Lyren reached out, his hand resting on hers. You don't have to be alone anymore. We're in this together, Aralyn. We'll stop the rift and we'll make sure the mistakes of the past aren't repeated. Aralyn looked at him, her expression softening for the first time. For a brief moment, she allowed herself to believe in the possibility of hope. The air was thick with tension as Lyren and Aralyn stood before the massive gates of the central citadel. The rift behind them continued to grow, and the world around them seemed to be holding its breath, waiting for something to break. We're almost there, Aralyn said, her voice tight with anticipation. She looked up at the towering citadel, her eyes narrowing. But we're not alone. Something is watching us. Lyren scanned the surroundings. His senses heightened. The silence was eerie, and the air felt heavy, as if the very ground beneath their feet was watching them. Suddenly the ground trembled, and from the shadows of the citadel, dark figures emerged. They moved with unnatural speed and grace, their forms flickering between the physical and the ethereal. They're here, Aralyn whispered, drawing her weapon. The guardians of Targos. They will stop us from entering the heart of the city. Lyren's heart raced as he watched the figures advance, their glowing eyes fixed on him and Aralyn. He had never faced anything like this before, but the stone Aralyn had given him pulsed with energy, and he felt a surge of power coursing through him. Stay focused, Aralyn said sharply, her voice steady. These guardians are powerful, but we can defeat them if we work together. The first guardian lunged forward with incredible speed, but Lyren reacted instinctively, raising his hand. To his surprise, a surge of energy shot out from the stone, forming a shield of light that blocked the guardian's attack. The force of the impact sent a shockwave through the air, and Lyren stumbled back, but the shield held. He looked at Aralyn wide-eyed. I did that. I actually did that. Aralyn smiled, but it was a grim smile. You're learning faster than I expected, but this is just the beginning. There are more guardians to face. Another guardian lunged at them, but this time Lyren was ready. He raised his hand again, and this time the energy from the stone surged with more force, knocking the guardian back. The battle was just beginning, and Lyren could feel his power growing with each confrontation. Aralyn watched him with a mixture of approval and concern. You're tapping into something powerful, Lyren. But don't lose control. The guardians are just the beginning. We still have to face the heart of the rift. Lyren nodded, his determination solidifying. He had always thought he was just an ordinary man, but now he understood that he had a role to play in the fate of the universe, and he would do whatever it took to stop the rift. In the distant future, Eryk, the eccentric scientist, had spent years studying the rift, the mysterious portal that had brought so much chaos to the universe. His mind, sharp as ever, had unraveled many of the riddle's secrets, thanks to his unparalleled intellect. But he still didn't understand everything. There was more to the rift than he could have ever imagined. One day, driven by an unyielding desire to uncover the truth, Eryk made a decision. He would enter the rift himself. Armed with the knowledge he had gathered, he stepped into the portal, his heart pounding in his chest as he felt the pull of the rift's power. The journey through the rift was disorienting, a whirlwind of light and shadow, time and space blending together. But Eryk's intellect kept him grounded, allowing him to navigate the chaos with a cool, analytical mind. He knew that Lyren and Aralyn had to be somewhere on the other side, and he would find them. After what felt like an eternity, Eryk emerged from the rift into a world that was both strange and familiar. He found himself in the ruins of a long-forgotten city, the same city that had been the heart of an ancient civilization. And then through the haze of the past, he saw them. Lyren and Aralyn, exhausted but alive, were making their way through the city's abandoned streets, just moments ahead of the mysterious figures that had been chasing them. Eryk rushed toward them, relief flooding his chest as he called out their names. Lyren, Aralyn. Eryk shouted, his voice echoing through the empty streets. The two of them turned, startled but relieved to see him. Eryk, Lyren, said, his voice filled with surprise. How did you find us? Eryk smiled, though there was a trace of exhaustion in his eyes. It wasn't easy, but I've been studying the rift for a long time. I knew I would find you. You're part of this, Lyren. You're one of the keys. Aralyn stepped forward, her expression curious. What do you mean, keys? She asked, her tone cautious. The keys, Eryk explained, his voice steady. They are the bloodlines, the descendants of the ancient guardians. You, Lyren, are one of them, and you have the power to close the rift. But it won't be easy. There are choices you'll have to make, choices that could change everything. Lyren felt the weight of Eryk's words settle in. He had always thought he was just a maintenance worker, a small part of a much larger universe. But now the truth was undeniable. His destiny had always been tied to the rift and to the choices he would have to make. The sky above the rift darkened as an immense fleet of alien ships appeared, their dark silhouettes cutting through the stars like a shadow cast over the galaxy. Lyren and Aralyn stood at the edge of the city, their eyes fixed on the massive force that was descending upon them. The calm they had felt moments ago was gone, replaced by a sense of impending doom. They're here, Aralyn said, her voice steady but filled with urgency. The aliens that have been hunting us. They've come to destroy the rift. Lyren's heart raced as the enemy fleet loomed closer, their weapons charging with deadly energy. He could feel the tension building in the air as the rift pulsed with power, a silent warning that the destruction was imminent. We have to stop them, Lyren said, his voice tight with fear but filled with determination. If they destroy the rift, everything is lost. Aralyn nodded, drawing her weapon as she prepared for battle. We don't have a choice. The rift is the key to everything. We must protect it at all costs. The first wave of alien ships launched a barrage of energy blasts, the air crackling with the intensity of the attack. Lyren and Aralyn dove for cover, narrowly avoiding the deadly beams that tore through the ground where they had just been standing. We need to fight back, Lyren shouted, feeling a surge of energy from the stone in his hand. He raised his arm and a blast of light shot out, hitting one of the alien ships and sending it spiraling into the void. Aralyn joined him, her attacks precise and lethal, taking down one alien ship after another. The ground shook beneath them as explosions rang out the enemy forces, relentless in their assault. But despite their best efforts, the alien fleet kept coming. We can't hold them off forever, Aralyn said through gritted teeth. We need to get to the heart of the rift. That's the only way to stop them. Lyren nodded, feeling the weight of the moment. The battle had become a desperate struggle, and the fate of the universe rested on their shoulders. With one final push, they fought their way through the alien forces, each step closer to the heart of the rift. The clash between the alien forces and the two guardians was fierce, with energy blasts and explosions lighting up the darkened sky. It was a fight for survival, and every second counted. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Lyren and Aralyn reached the heart of the rift. Together they stood at the center of the chaotic energy, ready to make the ultimate sacrifice to close the rift and save the universe. The energy around the rift was overwhelming, pulsating with a force that threatened to tear apart everything in its path. Lyren stood at the edge, his body battered and exhausted from the relentless battle with the alien forces. He could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on him, the burden of his destiny heavy on his shoulders. The rift pulsed with a terrible energy, the gateway to destruction, and Lyren knew that only he had the power to close it. But at what cost? As he stood there, the chaos of the battle still raging around him, his mind raced with the choices he had to make. Should he accept his role as the heir to the ancient bloodline, the one destined to close the rift? Or should he refuse and return to a normal life free from the weight of this responsibility? The alien forces were relentless, their assault showing no signs of stopping. Lyren's energy was fading, but he could still hear Aralyn's voice in his mind, urging him to make a choice. The weight of her words echoed in his ears. The rift is the key to everything, Lyren. If we don't stop it now, it will destroy everything we've fought for. Lyren clenched his fists, his mind in turmoil. He had never wanted to be special, never asked for this power. He had always been just a maintenance worker, living a simple life in the shadow of the universe's vastness. But now the weight of his heritage pressed upon him like a mountain, and he knew that he couldn't run from it any longer. Aralyn's voice echoed in his mind, pulling him back to the present. The rift is not just a force of destruction, it is a test of your strength, your will, and your heart. Only you can decide if you are ready to face it. The final moments of the battle had arrived. Lyren and Aralyn stood at the heart of the rift, the energy surrounding them, intensifying with every passing second. The air crackled with power, and Lyren could feel the weight of the universe pressing down on him. He was the key, but even with all the strength he had gained, he knew it wouldn't be enough to close the rift alone. Lyren, you must close it. Now Aralyn said, her voice strained with effort. She had fought beside him, but now the energy of the rift was taking its toll. She was weakening, and Lyren could see the strain in her eyes. Lyren nodded, but his hands shook as he reached out to the stone, feeling the surge of power within it. He wasn't sure he could do it. He wasn't sure he could carry the weight of the entire universe on his shoulders. You're not alone, Lyren, Aralyn whispered, stepping closer. But you'll need more than just your strength. I'm going to help you. I have to. Lyren turned to her, confusion and concern in his eyes. What are you talking about? You're already weakening. You can't. Aralyn smiled softly, her gaze unwavering. I don't have much time left, but I can give you the strength you need. Before Lyren could respond, Aralyn placed her hand on the stone, and a surge of energy passed between them. Lyren gasped as the energy coursed through his body, stronger than anything he had ever felt. But then, as quickly as it came, the energy began to fade, and Lyren turned to see Aralyn, her face pale, her body trembling. Aralyn, no. You can't, Lyren cried, reaching out to her, but she pulled away, a pained smile on her face. I have to, Aralyn whispered. This is the only way. You have to close it, Lyren. For the universe. For us. As the rift pulsed one last time, Aralyn's body began to fade, her form becoming transparent as the energy from the stone flowed through Lyren, giving him the strength he needed. Aralyn, no. Lyren cried out, reaching for her as she began to disappear. I'll remember you, Lyren. Aralyn's voice echoed, soft but clear. I'll remember you. Always. And then with one final agonizing breath, Aralyn was gone, her form vanishing into the void. The rift closed with a violent burst of energy, pushing the alien forces back, sending them spiraling into nothingness. The universe had been saved, but at a great cost. Lyren stood alone in the aftermath, his heart heavy with grief and loss. Aralyn had given her life to save the universe, and he would never forget her. The rift had been sealed, the universe saved, but at a great cost. Lyren stood alone at the heart of the now quiet battlefield, his mind heavy with the weight of what had just transpired. The destruction, the loss, and the sacrifice, everything that had led to this moment. Aralyn was gone, and the universe would never be the same again. As he looked out across the silent ruins, Lyren realized that he could never return to the life he had once known. His past, his simple life as a maintenance worker, seemed like a distant memory now. He had changed. He was no longer just a man. He was the heir to an ancient legacy, a guardian of the universe burdened with the responsibility of ensuring its survival. He took a deep breath, feeling the weight of his decision settle into his chest. Aralyn's final words echoed in his mind. I'll remember you. Always. Those words would stay with him forever, a reminder of the sacrifice that had been made to save everything he now protected. Lyren knew that he could never forget her. The universe had been saved, but he had lost something precious. The pain of that loss would always be with him, a constant reminder of what he had given up to fulfill his duty. But he also knew that the mission was far from over. The universe was vast, and his role in it was far from finished. He turned away from the battlefield, looking toward the future. His path was uncertain, and the weight of his responsibility was a heavy burden to bear. But he had made his choice, and there was no turning back. He was the key. He was the guardian, and this was his destiny. As Lyren walked into the unknown, the stars above seemed to whisper his name. The universe, vast and filled with endless possibilities, was now his responsibility to protect. Aralyn's sacrifice would never be forgotten. He would carry her memory with him, a constant reminder of what it meant to be a true guardian. The journey ahead was uncertain, filled with challenges and dangers, but Lyren knew that he was ready. He had made his choice, and he would stand strong no matter what the future held. The universe had been saved, but its fate was still in his hands. He was the key, the heir to an ancient legacy, and now he would write his own future. With each step, Lyren embraced his destiny, and as the universe unfolded before him, he knew that his journey had only just begun.